Welcome to your deep dive on the chemistry of mustard. You asked us to explore what gives this condiment its signature kick, so we're diving into 5 fascinating factoids all about the chemistry that makes mustard so pungent and zesty.
Yeah, it really is amazing how much science goes into that little yellow squeeze bottle.
Right, I mean, we all know mustard has a certain, well, zing to it, but I never really stopped to think about what's actually happening on my tongue.
Well, and that's exactly what we're here to unpack today. Let's start with the source of that sharpness, those fireworks you mentioned.
Okay.
It all boils down to a group of chemicals called isothiocyanates.
Isothiocyanates. That
Isothiocyanates.
sounds pretty intense.
They are. They're like the wasabi of the mustard world. Both wasabi and mustard get their punch from these potent little molecules.
Okay, so isothiocyanates equal pungency.
Exactly.
But are those just like hanging out in the mustard seeds ready to go?
Not quite. Think of it this way. Mustard seeds contain these compounds called glucosinolates.
Glucosinase?
Glucosinolates, yeah. And they're like blocked treasure chests of flavor, just hiding inside the mustard seeds.
Okay.
They're actually flavorless on their own. They need a key to unlock that pungent potential.
Interesting. So what is the key to unlocking that flavor?
The key is an enzyme called myrosinase, which is also found in the mustard seeds.
Okay.
It acts as a catalyst. It converts those glucosinolates into the fiery isothiocyanates that we associate with mustard.
So it's like a chemical reaction is happening within the mustard seeds themselves.
Exactly.
Wow.
And the really cool part is we play a role in triggering that reaction every time we prepare mustard.
Wait, really? How do we do that?
Well, think about how you make mustard.
Okay.
You crush the seeds with water, right? That's the critical step.
So crushing the seeds and adding water kickstarts the process.
Yep.
So what's happening like at a molecular level when we do that?
So crushing the seeds brings the myrosinase enzyme into contact with those glucosinolates.
Okay.
And then adding water creates the perfect environment for the enzyme to do its work.
I see. So we're basically setting the stage for a molecular dance party, and the myrosinase enzyme is the DJ.
I love that analogy. You got it.
Awesome.
And the result is those pungent isothiocyanates bursting onto the scene, creating that flavor explosion that we all know and love.
So every time I mix up some mustard, I'm basically conducting a chemistry experiment in my own kitchen.
You absolutely are.
That's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. And, this understanding of the reaction can actually help us in the kitchen, especially when it comes to using heat.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I've always wondered why mustard kind of loses its punch when you cook it for too long.
Right.
Does the heat affect those isothiocyanates?
Yeah, you're spot on.
Okay.
Heat is actually the nemesis of pungent mustard.
Okay.
Remember how we said that those isothiocyanates are volatile?
Volatile, so they like to escape.
Exactly. When they're exposed to high temperatures, they evaporate into the air.
Oh, okay.
And they take their pungent punch with them.
So if I want to preserve that sharp mustard flavor in my cooking, when should I add it?
Timing is key.
Okay.
You want to add your mustard towards the end of cooking
Okay.
when the heat is lower.
Right.
To minimize the loss of those volatile compounds.
So like when I make a mustard vinaigrette, I should whisk it in at the very end after the dressing is cooled slightly.
Exactly. That way you retain that fresh, vibrant mustard bite.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is making me rethink my whole approach to cooking with mustard. So we've covered the basic chemistry behind that pungency, those isothiocyanates, and the role of that myrosinase enzyme.
Right.
But what about different types of mustard, like yellow mustard versus Dijon?
Yeah.
Is it all just different amounts of those isothiocyanates?
That's a great question, and that leads us to the fascinating world of mustard varieties, where seed type and processing techniques play a huge role.
I am all ears. Tell me more about these variations.
So let's start with the classic yellow mustard, the kind you see on most hot dog stands.
Okay.
It actually gets that sunny hue from turmeric.
Turmeric?
Turmeric.
Really?
Yep, the same spice that's used in curries.
I never would have guessed.
Yeah, so it's not just about the mustard seeds themselves.
Right.
There are other ingredients that contribute to that flavor profile.
I see.
Now, yellow mustard often uses white mustard seeds,
Okay.
which have a lower concentration of those potent glucosinolates we talk about.
That explains why it's so mild, right? Like I can slather yellow mustard on pretty much anything without feeling like my taste buds are on fire.
Exactly. Now, if you want to step up the intensity a little bit, let's talk about Dijon mustard.
Okay.
Which has that signature tanginess that pairs so well with almost everything.
Oh, Dijon is definitely my go-to for vinaigrettes and marinades.
Yeah, it's great.
What makes it so distinct?
Well, Dijon mustard typically uses brown mustard seeds.
Okay.
And those bring a whole different set of glucosinolates to the party.
So different mustard seeds, different glucosinolates, different flavors.
Exactly. Brown mustard seeds create a more complex, almost peppery flavor
Okay.
compared to the milder white seeds.
Interesting. So those brown mustard seeds are like the more sophisticated cousins of the white mustard seeds.
Yeah, you could say that.
I like that.
But it's not just the seeds that make Dijon so special.
Okay.
Traditionally, it also includes verjuice.
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 What's that?
It's the tart juice of unripe grapes.
Oh, okay.
And that adds a layer of acidity that balances out the richness of the mustard,
Right.
giving it that characteristic tang that you love.
I never knew there was so much history and nuance packed into a bar of Dijon.
It's pretty cool.
Speaking of possibilities, are you ready to explore the king of pungent mustard?
Oh, let's do it.
Bring on the heat.
All right, we're talking about English mustard.
Yes.
The kind that clears your sinuses and leaves you feeling fully alive.
It's definitely not for the faint of heart.
No, it's not.
So what's the secret behind its intense flavor?
Well, English mustard is usually made with a high proportion of black mustard seeds.
Okay.
Those are the heavy hitters of the mustard world.
Right.
They're packed with the most potent glucosimolates.
Okay, so black mustard seeds for maximum pungency.
Exactly.
Is there anything else that contributes to that, like in-your-face flavor?
Yeah, the processing actually plays a role too.
Okay.
English mustard is often coarsely ground, which means more surface area is exposed for those flavor compounds to be reduced.
So it's like a faster, more intense flavor explosion?
Exactly.
Wow, my mind is officially blown.
Yeah.
I had no idea there was so much to learn about mustard.
I know. It's pretty fascinating, right?
Yeah. So we talked about how heat can affect mustard's flavor, but are there other things that can influence its pungency over time, like even in storage?
That's a great question, and the answer is yes. Think about what we know about those volatile isothiocyanates.
Okay.
They're responsible for that sharp flavor, but they're also prone to breaking down over time, especially when exposed to air and light.
So even if I don't cook with my mustard, those flavor molecules can still, like, disappear.
That's right. It's like a slow leak in a tire.
Mm-hmm.
The flavor slowly deflates over time.
Okay, so how do we prevent that? What's the best way to store mustard to keep it at its peak flavor?
Airtight, cool, and dark.
Airtight, cool, and dark.
You got it.
So basically, treat my mustard like a vampire.
Exactly. Keep it away from sunlight and air, and it'll stay potent for much longer.
Okay, so airtight container, dark pantry.
Right.
What about the freezer? Can I freeze mustard to preserve it?
You can, but it's not ideal.
Okay.
Freezing can actually change the texture of the mustard.
Oh, really?
Yeah, making it grainy or causing it to separate.
Huh.
It won't be as smooth and creamy as it was before.
So freezing is more of a last resort, like if I have this massive jar of Dijon that I know I'm never going to finish.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's better to just use it up within a reasonable time frame or, share the mustard love with friends and family.
Sharing the mustard love, I love that.
Yeah.
This whole conversation has made me realize that I've really only scratched the surface of what mustard can do.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about using mustard as a condiment, but are there other ways to use it in cooking that really highlight its unique qualities?
Absolutely. Mustard is incredibly versatile.
Okay.
It can act as an emulsifier, a tenderizer, even a thickener.
Hold on, back up for a second.
Sure.
Mustard as an emulsifier.
An emulsifier.
Remind me what that is again?
Yeah, so an emulsifier helps to bind ingredients together that wouldn't normally mix, like oil and water.
Right.
Think of it as a culinary peacemaker.
Okay.
It creates a smooth and creamy texture in salad dressings, sauces, even mayonnaise.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So mustard helps create those, like, luscious, velvety textures we all love.
Exactly.
Okay, and then what about tenderizing? How does mustard tenderize meat?
Well, mustard contains enzymes that can actually break down the tough proteins in meat,
Okay.
making it more tender and flavorful.
So a marinade with mustard can actually make my steak more succulent.
Exactly. And those same enzymes work wonders in braises and stews as well.
Mustard is really a culinary chameleon. It can emulsify, tenderize, and you said something about thickening, too.
Yeah, so when heated, the starches in mustard can gelatinize, adding a subtle thickening effect to soups and sauces.
So like a natural thickener similar to cornstarch or flour.
Exactly. It's a gentle touch.
Okay.
Adding body without overpowering the other flavors in your dish.
This is incredible. I'm starting to see mustard as a secret weapon in the kitchen.
It really is.
It's so much more than just a condiment.
It is. And you know what the best part is? You can even make your own mustard at home.
Wait, homemade mustard? Is that really something I could do?
Absolutely. It's surprisingly simple, and it allows you to control the ingredients and customize the flavor exactly to your liking.
Okay, you've officially piqued my curiosity. What are the essential steps to making mustard from scratch?
It all starts with mustard seeds, a liquid, and any additional flavorings that you desire.
Mustard seeds, liquid flavorings, okay?
Yep.
Sounds pretty simple.
It is.
But what kind of liquid are we talking about here?
You can use something as basic as water.
Okay.
Or you can get creative with vinegar, wine, beer, even juice to add complexity to the flavor.
So many options.
Yeah.
And what about those additional flavorings? What are some of your favorites?
Oh, the world is your oyster when it comes to flavorings. Herbs, spices, honey, garlic, shallots, even fruits can all add a unique twist to your homemade mustard.
Wow.
It really depends on your personal preference and what you're going for with the overall flavor profile.
Okay, my culinary wheels are spinning. So you've got your mustard seeds, your liquid, your flavoring. What's
Right.
next?
Once you've gathered your ingredients, you'll want to grind the mustard seeds.
Okay.
You can use a mortar and pestle for a more rustic texture, or a spice grinder if you prefer a smoother consistency.
So like grinding coffee beans, you have control over how coarse or fine it is.
Exactly. And that grind size is going to influence both the texture and the intensity of that final mustard.
Okay.
A coarser grind will release those pungent compounds more quickly, resulting in a bolder flavor.
All right, so you grind the mustard seeds and then you combine them with your liquid and flavorings?
Precisely. And make sure you mix everything together thoroughly so those mustard seeds are fully hydrated.
Okay, and then is it ready to enjoy? Can I just slather it on a sandwich right away?
Not so fast. There's
Oh.
one crucial step that allows those flavors to really meld and develop.
Okay.
You'll want to let the mixture rest for at least a few hours or even overnight.
Oh, okay, so it's like letting dough rise, giving those flavors time to get to know each other.
That's a great way to put it. During that resting period, those potent isothiocyanates are forming and the flavors are harmonizing.
I love it.
Yeah.
This is making me want to like host a mustard making party and experiment with all sorts of flavor combinations with my friend.
That's a fantastic idea. It's a really fun and rewarding way to explore the world of mustard.
Okay, so after that resting period, the mustard is finally ready to enjoy.
Almost. You can actually adjust the consistency at this point by adding more liquid if needed,
Okay.
and then simply transfer your homemade mustard to a jar, store it in the refrigerator, and voila.
That is amazing.
Right?
It sounds so simple yet so rewarding.
It is.
I am definitely going to try my hand at homemade mustard.
I highly encourage it.
Okay.
It's a wonderful way to deepen your connection with food and, appreciate the artistry involved in creating something delicious.
Okay, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
You said that mustard's flavor is dynamic, meaning it evolves over time.
Right.
Can you elaborate on that a bit? What are some of the factors that contribute to those flavor changes?
Exactly. And you know what? Different factors can influence how those flavors change over time.
Okay, like what?
Well, exposure to air, for example,
Okay.
can lead to oxidation,
Uh-huh.
which can alter the chemical structure of those isothiocyanates, leading to like a mellowing of the flavor.
So it's like the mustard is slowly losing its edge over time.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And light can also play a role,
Right.
It speeds up those chemical reactions.
Okay.
Contributes to flavor degradation.
So that's why storing mustard properly is so important.
Yes.
Airtight container in a cool, dark place.
Absolutely. You got it.
Okay, good.
By minimizing the exposure to air and light, you're basically slowing down those reactions and preserving the flavor profile.
Okay, so this has given me a whole new perspective on like how I view food storage.
Yeah.
It's not just about preventing spoilage.
Right.
It's about protecting those precious flavor molecules.
Exactly. You got it.
Okay, cool.
And temperature plays a crucial role too.
Right.
Heat can accelerate those reactions, so storing your mustard in a cool environment like a pantry or a refrigerator helps to maintain that flavor.
Okay, airtight container, cool, dark place.
Yeah.
What about freezing mustard? Is that ever an option?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
While you can technically freeze mustard, it's not always ideal.
Why not? What happens when you freeze it?
Well, freezing can actually alter the texture of the mustard.
Okay.
It can cause it to become grainy or separate.
Oh, interesting.
So it might still be usable, but the texture won't be as smooth and creamy.
Okay, so freezing is kind of a last resort, like if you absolutely have to extend the shelf life.
Exactly.
I gotcha.
If you find yourself with a surplus of mustard, it's generally better to just try to use it up within a reasonable time frame, or consider, sharing it with friends or family.
Sharing the mustard love.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
Mustard makes a great gift, especially when you pair it with something homemade, like a loaf of bread or a jar of pickles.
I love that idea. That's a great idea.
Right.
Yeah.
This has been an incredibly enlightening deep dive into the world of mustard.
Yeah, it has.
We've covered everything from the chemistry behind its pungency to the secrets of DIY mustard making.
It's been fun.
I think it's safe to say that we've all gained a newfound appreciation for this versatile condiment.
I think so too, and I hope our listeners will continue to explore the world of mustard with, curiosity and enthusiasm.
So as we wrap up this episode, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought to ponder.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about mustard's ability to elevate flavors, but I'm curious, what are some of the less obvious ways that mustard can enhance a dish beyond just adding that signature tang?
That's an excellent question, and it speaks to the fact that mustard is more than just a flavor enhancer.
Right.
It can actually act as a culinary chameleon, subtly transforming the texture and the overall complexity of a dish.
A culinary chameleon. I love that.
Yeah.
Give us some examples, like how does mustard play this transformative role?
One of my favorite examples is using mustard as an emulsifier.
An emulsifier. Remind us what that means again.
Yeah, so an emulsifier helps to combine ingredients that wouldn't normally mix, like oil and water.
Right.
Mustard, with its unique blend of proteins and polysaccharides, can actually act as a binding agent, creating a smooth and stable emulsion.
So it's like a culinary peacemaker, bringing together those warring factions of oil and water.
Exactly. And this property is essential in salad dressings, sauces, even mayonnaise, where that smooth, creamy texture is desired.
That makes perfect sense. I'm now thinking about all the creamy salad dressings and the sauces that rely on mustard's emulsifying magic.
It's a crucial role that often goes unnoticed, but it's essential for achieving that perfect consistency.
Okay, emulsifying is one way that mustard acts as a culinary chameleon. What are some other transformative powers it possesses?
Well, another fascinating aspect of mustard is its ability to tenderize meat.
Tenderize meat. How does that work?
So mustard contains enzymes that can help break down those tough proteins in meat, making it more tender and flavorful.
So it's like a natural meat tenderizer.
Exactly. And this tenderizing effect works wonders in marinades, as we discussed earlier, but it can also be used in braises and stews to create those melt-in-your-mouth textures.
Okay, this is opening up a whole new world of culinary possibilities. I'm starting to see mustard as a secret weapon in the kitchen.
It really is.
It is. And beyond tenderizing, mustard can also add a subtle thickening effect to sauces and soups.
That's right.
Interesting. How does that work?
So when heated, the starches in mustard can gelatinize, creating a slightly thicker consistency.
So it's a natural thickening agent, kind of similar to cornstarch or flour.
Exactly. It's a subtle effect, but it can add a nice body to sauces and soups without overpowering the other flavors.
This has been an incredible journey into the world of mustard.
It has been fun.
I feel like I've unlocked a whole new level of culinary understanding.
That's great.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the wonderful world of mustard.
It's been a pleasure, and remember, the best way to learn is to experiment.
Right.
Don't be afraid to play with different mustards, try new pairings, and let your culinary creativity flow.
That's a perfect note to end on, a reminder that food is meant to be explored and enjoyed. So thank you again for joining us.
And may your future meals be filled with flavorful and inspiring mustard moments.